Yeah. I feel like that sounds right based on like the study that's been done recently. Like there's obviously all this
Mm.
stuff now on bodybuilders and kind of specializing on how much protein's taken in. Did you look at all at was the post workout protein the same? Was it still the shake or did the
Yeah.
protein sources themselves vary?
No, so we just did 20 or 40 grams of whey protein.
Mm. Do you know if that protein source makes a difference? Obviously, not just in this study, but outside of that, does that source make any impact?
Depending on, there's been quite a bit of stuff around complete or incomplete. So whey protein and most animal proteins have like all amino acids in them.
Mhm.
Um, so if you have something that's like got all of the amino acids, that seems to be kind of better. But if you're just a plant protein person, there's actually like some protein blends. So having a couple of different plant proteins, so you're picking up that amino acid profile, then seems to help a little bit. The actual form which the protein comes in. So there's some nice work from Luke Van Loon, who's based in Maastricht, where they've basically. So what we did with the protein shake and the infusion is we add basically like a labeled a tracer that's got a bit of protein. Some of the protein's got a label on it, so we can pick it up. That's how we pick it up in the muscle. So he's basically done that with cows. So the what they are generating is basically tagged, and then that means that wherever it shows up in the person's body after they've consumed the milk or eaten the beef, um, they can see kind of where it's going. So it's like a tracking system essentially for the protein. So he's found a little bit of difference between like ground mince compared to milk. So there's difference in terms of the digestion kinetics. It kind of depends on the time frame that you look over. So
Mhm.
we looked at 3 hours and 5 hours post ingestion. So a few of the studies, for example, if you look at whey versus casein in the first 3 hour period, it looks like whey is actually like way better for increasing muscle growth. But actually, if you look over a longer period, so over the 5 hour period, that difference kind of evens out. So it's thinking about as well what is the time frame that you're actually looking at, and if you're looking at kind of long term muscle growth building, then over that time period it kind of is kind of irrelevant how quickly it happens. um so yeah, there are differences sometimes in the form. There's also been some interesting stuff around like the combination of stuff. So I think Van Philip was the first author. They basically looked at whole egg protein, so having whole eggs compared to egg white. And they found that the response was a little bit better with the whole egg. So having like not having just the isolated protein source. And there's some
Mm.
older research where they also did similar with milk. So they had like full fat milk versus skimmed milk, and the full fat milk seemed to increase muscle protein synthesis more than just the skim milk. So it's quite, there's something obviously going on there with like the, I don't know whether it's additional minerals, or if it's like the fat kinetics or something, or if it's the absorption, um, the rate of absorption that's maybe changed a little bit by the fat um, that's in those products. But it seems to be there's something there, but that's still like not quite. There's not been too much work like since to kind of really look at that.
Yeah. Wow, that's so interesting that you can track the protein through the cows.
Yeah.
That's insane. I never knew that you can do that.
Yeah, so basically what I'm just going to turn the light on. So basically that's how we detect it in the muscle. So what happens is when we try to explain it, once we basically infuse a tracked amino acid um into the bloodstream, and then we can see, so that's basically our amino acids are basically the building blocks of our muscles. So we've got some of those amino acids that are in that's going straight into the person's bloodstream. They're basically tagged with a label that we can then pick up in the muscle and in the blood. And then we also tag that goes into their drink. So that means that basically we can track exactly where those amino acids are going. So that's how so people ingest them. They have the shake or they eat the food or whatever. And then we can follow that in the blood, so we can see the elevation of it into the blood as they digest the food or the shake, and then we can also see when it's been incorporated, when it's been used to build new muscle, and that's how we can then say the rate of that's increased. So then with the cows, what they do is they basically feed the cows the tagged amino acids and protein. Then anything that they produce, they've got that in their body, and then
Mhm.
anything that they produce, if that's then consumed again, that tag stays on, and then you can see, okay, that those specific amino acids which are used to make proteins to build your muscle have come from the cow, so we can then see like where they end up and the rate of it. So it's really cool, like technology, like, well, yes, technology. So they were one of the first to do it in like um to have like a thickened, so to do it through the cow. But yeah, I think and his stuff's really interesting. Actually, I saw him present not long ago. Um and they're like PhD. I thought my PhD was stressful. They're like on a farm monitoring the cows, like taking the cow's blood to make sure that everything's okay. And
When you say tagging, what
yeah,
are they tagging it with? Like, what's the marker that you can see? And
so how's your chemistry?
GCSE, we were there. We were there for
Yeah.
GCSE.
So basically, what they do, so we usually so phenylalanine is an amino acid. It's pretty kind of stable. Um, so basically, what we do is we put so your carbon within your amino acids are usually C12,
Yep.
like in normal existence. So basically,
Yep.
how we label is that we make that slightly heavier, so it's C13.
Mhm.
So that then means that we can detect that differently to so instead of naturally occurring in phenylalanine is 12C for your carbon, but we have 13C phenylalanine, which is basically what we're adding. So we make that up into like saline, and that's what we then infuse. So that's infused at a rate, we know how slowly that's going in, and then we add to whatever people are ingesting as well. Sometimes you do that, sometimes you don't. So then basically what happens was then that goes into the bloodstream, and we would take like a blood sample. And then because it's slightly heavier than the naturally occurring, we can then on a mass spectrometer, that comes up basically because it's heavier, we can detect it separate to the the naturally occurring
Yeah.
12 carbon. So
Wow.
that's how we do it.
Yeah. Wow. That's super cool. That's so cool. I should have taken chemistry more seriously. I should have gone to this.
So yeah, it's really interesting. And then like the mass spectrometry is like another, if you'd asked me just when I was preparing for my Viva, I would have been able to give you a much more accurate
Mm.
answer on how that all works. But
Yeah.
so yeah, that
The next time.
basically, yeah, that you can then detect obviously the different molecular weights. So the molecular weight is slightly different with the 13, obviously, because it's slightly heavier.
Mhm.
So that's how we then differentiate, and we can then track and see based on the time of ingestion and then the amount of time that's passed um, as well.
Wow. That's so cool. Yeah, that's really cool. I'm gonna have to do some more research on that on my own time after this.
And you can do it with a whole load of other. So that study that I talked about, that was Sophie's PhD. She did it, but with like glucose. So you can also label. We call it labeling. You can basically
Mm.
have like slightly heavier. So then you can then see where the glucose is going, and then that's used for a whole load of like glucose kinetics as well, which is like that's another level as well. From protein seems relatively simple compared to like glucose.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Fair. Wow. Yeah. That is. Yeah. That is really cool. That is really cool.